Hello everyone. I hope that you and all of your families are doing well and staying safe through this trying time. My name is John Ashley, and today I'll be discussing how schools are not conducive to long-term learning. As of now, I've been attending school for 13 years before college and 3 years of college, and after college I plan on getting a master's in biomedical engineering. Just like everyone else, I'm sure all of you guys have gone to a lot of school. Everybody probably has their own ideas on how school can improve, and it really is important to improve schools because, just as Robert Noyce put it, knowledge is power and knowledge shared is power multiplied. And at this point, school really is not conducive to long-term learning, and some reasons for that is because it does not tailor the pace for the individual students. It does not give the straightforward rewards that students need to learn, and it doesn't teach students how to retain information in the long term. And so the first point of that is humans learn at different paces. According to Chris Weller in his article, The 4 Active Ingredients for Long-Term Learning takes time. Instead of cramming information into our heads only to forget it soon after, the brain really creates long-term memories through a spacing approach. And realistically, what that means is that some students are going to need more time to learn thoroughly than other students. And that spacing approach is going to be a situation where you're going to have a consistent amount of material over a long period of time instead of just cramming all of this information into a short period of time. And this long-term approach for learning is also more consistent with how we develop skills in everyday life. As Daniel Coyle put it in his book, The Talent Code, expertise is the result of 10,000 hours of committed practice. In this book, he talks about how musicians, athletes, and artists all master their skills. And none of these people became masters in 4 months. How did they get to the point where they're at? They practiced and they practiced and they practiced. In these types of formats, they are developing skills over a long period of time. They're not taking long breaks over summers, and they're going at their own pace. Another way to think about learning is to think about what's actually going on in the brain. In the article, The Brain Learns in Unexpected Ways by Douglas R. Fields, the article discusses how our brains act as a group of circuits that send electrical impulses between neurons. Neurons are brain cells. On these circuits, there is a wrapping around the wire called myelin. The more myelin, the faster the signals travel between the neurons. This is an important concept because the myelin will grow and deteriorate depending on the activity that's going on within the brain. If I play the piano every day, then I'm going to have a lot more myelin building on those circuits that are based around me playing the piano. But if I take a long time off, that myelin's going to disappear and I'm going to lose those skills. So if a lot of time is taken off, like a summer break, then the myelin wrapping will deteriorate, and thus the school skills that a student has developed will also deteriorate. And another reason why semesters aren't good for students is that they train students to go for grades instead of learning the material. As Stephen Mayer put it in his article, New Study Reveals Neuroscience of Long-Term Learning. If our brains are confident that acquiring a certain piece of information will result in a reward or benefit, that information has a great chance of being remembered. And essentially, what that means is that our brains have a finite amount of storage. Our brain only wants to remember what it has to. So the way that semesters work is that you only have to remember information for a certain period of time. So it makes no sense to really work hard to develop those pathways in the brain so that you're gonna remember it for a really long time. Instead, what people do is they just cram, know it for one day, and then they're done with it. And then they don't need it anymore because the semester ends. And so another problem with the school system is that it really doesn't show you what the implications of good grades versus bad grades are. You know, it's a much more complicated system, and instead of explaining why things are important to people, we just tell them that they got an A through an F. You know, for example, if you were to look at kids who are just learning to read, you know, for the first time, they don't care what their grade is. All they know is that, you know, reading is hard and that it's not very fun and that they don't know why it's important. Learning to read isn't important because you got an A in first grade. Reading is important because you need to be able to critically think in the world. And ultimately, we don't have to keep a semester format with an A through F grading scale. You know, we have alternative options that we can go to. You know, one of these options would look like an individual-based learning situation. A way that you could implement that is you could have a flipped classroom that would allow kids to learn at their own pace. So kids could, you know, the kids who learn faster could, you know, progress faster, and the kids who learn slower would progress slower. And that would really help, especially the kids who progress slower, because they wouldn't get left behind from the kids who progress super fast. And also in this system, the way that you would implement it is you could get rid of the grading scale, because you would just make it so that if a student hadn't mastered a concept, they didn't get to continue learning. It makes no sense to make a kid learn more material that is based off of previous material that they don't understand. When you do that, that's when kids get super far behind, and that's when they fail. Another situation that we could change to improve things would be to implement year-round schooling. This would prevent kids from losing their skills over the summer, and it would also help the parents of kids who can't afford to send their kids to daycare. You know, some kids over the summer just sit at home all summer long and don't learn anything and don't do anything. So in conclusion, while these are just a couple of ideas, we need more people to care about education. We as students, who will likely be parents one day, need to give our input about where schools are actually failing. The semester format fails to promote long-term learning, and we need a system that paces learning for the individual, keeps students from losing their skills, and actually rewards students for learning for the long term. This is a large task, but ultimately, I believe that it is doable. Thank you for your time.